The massive Centauri warship hung in space like a dark star. Inside its command center, Commander Vexlar watched the battle with cold satisfaction. His 8 eyes blinked in sequence as the view screen showed the last Asterian defense station crumbling under Centauri weapons. "The final shield is failing," reported his second-in-command. "Asteria Prime will be exposed in 3 minutes." Vexlar's mouthparts clicked in what passed for a smile among his kind. After 200 years, the last advanced civilization that opposed us falls today. Across the void, on the gleaming blue-white planet of Asteria Prime, alarms blared through the central science facility. Emergency lights cast red shadows on the worried faces of the last Asterian scientists. Ilara Kos ran through the curved hallways, her silver uniform torn at the shoulder. Unlike the insect-like Centauri, Asterians looked almost human, except for their pale blue skin and large almond-shaped eyes. Ilara reached the main archive room and pressed her palm against the security panel. "Access granted," said a soft voice from the walls. "Director Kos, please be advised that evacuation protocols are in effect." "Override," Ilara said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Initiate Project Distant Friend." The computer paused. "Project Distant Friend has a success probability of less than 8%. "It's the only chance we have left," Ilara whispered. The massive room hummed to life. Ancient data cores, untouched for centuries, began to glow with soft blue light. Ilara moved quickly between the stations, pulling up files and coordinates. The Asterians had visited many worlds over their 5,000 years of space travel. Most species they encountered were either too primitive or too aggressive to form meaningful alliances. But there had been one exception. A species on a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star. Humans. The Asterians had made brief contact with them 300 Earth years ago. The humans were primitive then, but showed remarkable potential. The Asterians had shared some basic scientific principles before departing, planning to return when humans were more advanced. But the Centauri Wars had begun, and the return visit never happened. A violent shake rocked the facility. Dust fell from the ceiling as the building's supports groaned. "Outer defenses have failed," the computer announced calmly. "Centauri ground forces will breach the facility in approximately 12 minutes. Ilara worked faster. Her fingers flew across the control panels as she prepared the message beacon. The Asterians had left a small listening post in the human solar system, dormant for centuries. If she could activate it remotely, there was a chance, a small one, that the humans might receive their call for help. In the Centauri command ship, Vexlar received new information from his scouts. "Commander, we're detecting unusual energy patterns from the science facility. They appear to be activating some kind of long-range communication array." Vexlar chittered with amusement. "Let them call for help. There is no one left to answer." The Centauri had conquered their way across 3 galactic arms, absorbing technology from each civilization they destroyed. Their hive-mind military structure made them perfect conquerors. Each soldier thought and acted as part of the whole, without fear or hesitation. On Asteria Prime, Ilara finished composing her message. It contained everything humans would need: technical specifications for defending against Centauri weapons, star maps showing Centauri territory, and the basics of Asterian technology that might help humanity advance quickly enough to stand a chance. "Will they understand it?" asked her assistant, a young scientist named Duran, who had refused to evacuate. "I don't know," Ilara admitted, "but there was something special about humans. Their minds worked differently than ours, more adaptable, more creative in crisis. The survey team called them productively chaotic." The facility shook again, harder this time. Warning lights flashed as the computer announced: "Perimeter breach. Centauri forces have entered the lower levels." Ilara took a deep breath and pressed the transmission button. The room filled with a high-pitched whine as the ancient machinery powered up to its maximum capacity. The message shot out into space, aimed at the dormant listening post near Earth. "Message sent. The computer confirmed. Ilara closed her eyes briefly in relief, then turned to her assistant. Now we need to make sure the Centauri don't discover where we sent it. She began the facility's self-destruct sequence as the sound of weapons fire echoed from the lower floors. Their time was measured in minutes now, perhaps seconds. "Do you really think humans can help us?" Doran asked quietly. Ilara smiled sadly. "Not us, but maybe those of our people who have fled to the outer colonies. The Centauri think they've won, that their triumph is complete." She looked up at the stars visible through the facility's crystal dome. "They have no idea what they've just pushed us to do." In the darkness of space, traveling at impossible speeds, the message began its journey to Earth. Jack Foster's night shift at the Wyoming listening array was almost over. The tall, lean technician stretched in his chair and yawned. Another quiet night of monitoring static from the stars. The small, government-funded SETI station was tucked away in a remote valley, far from city lights and radio interference. Jack checked his watch. 5:47 a.m. 13 more minutes, and he could head home to his small cabin nearby. He took a sip of cold coffee and grimaced. The main computer suddenly beeped. Jack frowned and put down his cup. The system rarely alerted to anything interesting. Usually it was just satellite interference or cosmic background noise. He tapped the keyboard and pulled up the signal data. His eyes widened. "That's not normal," he muttered. The signal pattern didn't match any known human broadcast. It pulsed in a complex, repeating sequence, almost like language. Jack quickly ran it through the standard filters. Not a pulsar, not a quasar, not radio interference. Jack's fingers flew across the keyboard, recording the signal and running deeper analysis. The morning shift supervisor, Bill Collins, walked in just as the computer finished its initial processing. "Morning, Jack. Anything exciting happen on the graveyard shift?" Bill asked with a smirk. Nobody expected anything exciting at the station. It had been operating for 23 years without a single confirmed extraterrestrial contact. "Actually, yes," Jack said, pointing at the screen. "Take a look at this." Bill leaned over, squinting at the display. "Probably just a military satellite." "Did you check against the database?" "First thing I did. It doesn't match any known pattern. And look at the source coordinates." Jack highlighted a section of data. "It's coming from just past Neptune. But there's nothing there. No probe, no satellite, nothing." Bill frowned. "Some kind of error then. Run a diagnostic on the array." "Already did. Everything's working perfectly." Bill scratched his gray beard. "Well, I'll pass it up the chain. Don't get too excited, though. Remember the microwave incident last year?" Jack nodded reluctantly. A nearby research station's microwave had caused a false positive that had everyone buzzing for days. But this felt different. "I'll see you tomorrow," Jack said, grabbing his jacket. But as he drove home along the empty country road, he couldn't stop thinking about the signal. In his cabin, Jack downloaded a copy of the data to his personal computer. There was something about the pattern that seemed almost familiar, like a word on the tip of his tongue. After a few hours of sleep, Jack woke up and immediately returned to the signal data. He tried various decoding methods without success. Then he remembered an old paper he'd read in college about potential mathematical languages for interstellar communication. Jack dug through his old files and found the paper. It described using prime numbers and basic physical constants as a foundation for communication with alien intelligence. With renewed energy, he applied these principles to the signal. Slowly, parts began to make sense. The signal contained repeating mathematical sequences, followed by what appeared to be technical diagrams. The complexity was far beyond anything humans currently used for communication. Jack's phone rang, interrupting his work. It was Bill. "Jack, forget whatever you copied from the system." Bill's voice was tense. "What? Why?" "Government guys showed up an hour after you left. Dark suits, serious faces. They took all our data and told us the signal was just a satellite malfunction." Jack looked at his screen, where he was making real progress decoding the message. Did they say which satellite? No details, just ordered a complete system reset and told us to ignore any similar signals. Bill paused. They seemed nervous, Jack. I've never seen them respond this fast to anything. After hanging up, Jack stared at his computer. He should probably delete everything as ordered. Instead, he saved his work and composed an email to an old college friend, Samantha Wright, who now worked as a physicist at a university in Colorado. Sam, I need your eyes on this. It's important. Don't share with anyone else. He attached his partial analysis and sent it before he could change his mind. Outside Jack's cabin, parked on a distant ridge with a clear view of his property, a black government SUV sat with two silent occupants. Between them, a directional microphone pointed at Jack's cabin. In the back seat, a small device blinked with an unfamiliar light pattern. And high above Earth, cloaked from human detection systems, a Zentari scout ship adjusted its orbit. Samantha Wright woke to the urgent beeping of her phone. She reached for it blindly, knocking over a stack of research papers beside her bed. The clock read 3:17 a.m. She squinted at the screen. An email from Jack Foster. They had been close friends in college, but hadn't spoken much in recent years. Curious, she opened it. 20 minutes later, Samantha was fully awake, sitting at her desk with 3 computer screens glowing in her darkened apartment. The data Jack had sent looked familiar somehow. "This can't be right," she whispered. She pulled open a drawer and took out an old notebook. It had belonged to her grandfather, Dr. Edward Wright, a physicist who had worked on classified government projects in the 1960s. The notebook contained strange equations and diagrams that had never made sense to her, despite her own advanced physics training. But now, comparing the notebook to Jack's signal data, she saw clear similarities. Samantha quickly typed a reply to Jack. "Where did you get this? It matches my grandfather's work. We need to talk in person." She hesitated before hitting send. If the government was already interested in the signal, her email might be monitored. Instead, she wrote, "Thanks for the Sci-Fi Story idea. Let's catch up soon. I'm driving to see my family in Wyoming tomorrow." The next day, Jack waited nervously at a small diner in Laramie. He noticed a black SUV parked across the street, but tried to act normal. When Samantha walked in, he almost didn't recognize her. Her usually neat brown hair was hidden under a baseball cap, and she wore sunglasses indoors. "Are you being followed?" she asked without greeting, sliding into the booth. "I think so. Men in black showed up at the listening station right after I left." Samantha looked around carefully, then opened her backpack just enough to show Jack her grandfather's notebook. "The signal you found matches equations my grandfather wrote down 60 years ago. He claimed they came from visitors who showed him technology beyond human understanding." Jack's eyes widened. Everyone thought he was making it up. The government discredited him. He lost his job, his reputation. He died convinced that someday the visitors would return. Her voice cracked slightly. Jack lowered his voice. "I've decoded more of the message. It contains star maps and what looks like technical specifications for advanced technology. And there's more, a warning about something called the Zentari." Samantha flipped through her grandfather's notebook. "Here, he mentioned that name too." She pointed to a page with the word Zentari underlined several times, next to a drawing of an insect-like creature. The waitress approached their table. "More coffee?" They both jumped. "No, thanks," Jack said. "Actually, we were just leaving." Outside, Jack noticed the black SUV was gone. "That's strange. They were watching me all morning." A loud screeching sound made them both look up. A commercial plane flying overhead suddenly changed course, banking sharply. Then another, and another. "What's happening?" Samantha whispered. Jack's phone buzzed with an emergency alert. "Unknown atmospheres on all citizens, ADVICED to CEK." SciFi. News alerts began popping up on both their phones. Massive objectedetcted entering Earth's atmosphere, and military forces mobilizing worldwide. "We need to go," Jack said, grabbing Samantha's arm. "Now." They ran to Jack's truck. As they pulled onto the highway, Samantha looked back and gasped. A dark shape was materializing in the sky above the town, massive and unlike any aircraft she had ever seen. "It's them," she said. "The Zentari." Jack drove faster, heading toward the mountains. "If that's true, we need to find somewhere safe to finish decoding the message. It might be our only hope." "I know where to go," Samantha said. "My grandfather had a research cabin in Montana. Off the grid. He built it to continue his work after the government shut him down. All his equipment should still be there." The shape in the sky grew larger behind them. Strange lights pulsed along its surface. "Do you think other signals reached Earth?" Jack asked. "Is that why they're here?" Samantha clutched her grandfather's notebook. "I don't think they're here because of the signal, Jack. I think they're here because of what happened to whoever sent it." Above them, the sky darkened as more shapes appeared, blotting out the sun. The drive to Montana took 6 tense hours. Jack and Samantha avoided main roads, taking forest service routes whenever possible. Radio stations broadcast confused reports about atmospheric anomalies and possible meteor showers, but internet news sites showed blurry photos of enormous ships hovering over major cities. "The government is trying to keep people calm," Jack said, checking his phone at a brief stop. "But social media is exploding with videos." By sunset, they reached the narrow dirt road leading to Edward Wright's old research cabin. The surrounding pine forest was dense and quiet. No power lines ran to the property, exactly what they needed. "Grandpa was paranoid after his work was dismissed," Samantha explained as she unlocked the cabin door. "He built this place to be completely self-sufficient. Solar power, well water, and fully shielded from electronic detection." Inside, the cabin was dusty but intact. Old-fashioned ham radio equipment sat beside modern computers. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with physics texts and notebooks. "We should be safe here for a while," Samantha said, powering up the systems. "Let's see what that message really says." They worked through the night, combining Jack's partial decoding with Samantha's grandfather's notes. By dawn, they had translated almost 60% of the Asterian message. "It's worse than we thought," Jack said, rubbing his tired eyes. "The Zentari have conquered dozens of worlds. They're not just invaders, they're exterminators." Samantha nodded grimly. "According to this, they assimilate the technology of each civilization they destroy, then use it against the next target." A loud crash outside made them both jump. Jack grabbed a hunting rifle from the wall and moved to the window. "I don't see anything," he whispered. Another crash, closer this time. Then a high-pitched whine that made their teeth hurt. "They found us," Samantha said, quickly backing up their work to a portable drive. The front door exploded inward. A tall, insect-like creature stepped through the splintered opening. Its body was covered in dark, segmented armor, and its 4 arms each held a different weapon. 6 more creatures followed behind it. "Zentari," Jack whispered. The lead alien made a series of clicking sounds. A mechanical voice translated. "Surrender the transmission data. Resistance will result in immediate termination." Jack raised the rifle. "Get behind me," he told Samantha. The Zentari commander tilted its head, 8 eyes blinking in sequence. "Primitive weapons are ineffective against our armor." Jack fired anyway. The bullet ricocheted off the alien's chest plate with a spark. The Zentari didn't even flinch. "Last warning," the mechanical voice stated. Jack looked around desperately, mind racing. His eyes fell on the propane tanks that heated the cabin. Without hesitation, he fired at them instead. The explosion knocked everyone to the ground. Smoke filled the cabin. Jack grabbed Samantha and pulled her toward the back door. "Run!" he shouted. Outside, they sprinted toward the woods. Laser fire cut through the trees around them. Jack pushed Samantha ahead, then turned to face their pursuers. "What are you doing?" she screamed. "Keep going. I'll hold them off." 3 Zentari emerged from the burning cabin. Jack grabbed a fallen branch and stood his ground. The lead Zentari approached cautiously. "Curious behavior," its translator said. "Your species values self-preservation above all else, according to our data." "Your data is wrong," Jack replied. He swung the branch at the nearest alien. To his surprise, he connected solidly, knocking it back. The other 2 hesitated, seemingly confused by his attack. Jack pressed his advantage, striking again and again. The Zentari had superior technology, but they moved with a strange hesitation, as if waiting for commands. The lead alien finally spoke. "Combat protocols not optimized for individual human aggression patterns. Tactical retreat required." To Jack's amazement, the Zentari began to withdraw. He didn't waste the opportunity. He ran after Samantha, catching up to her near a small stream. "How did you escape?" she asked breathlessly. "I'm not sure," Jack said. "They seemed confused by me fighting back." Samantha's eyes widened with realization. The message mentioned this. The Zentari are a hive mind species. They don't understand individual decision-making or improvisation. That's why they've targeted advanced technological civilizations first. Those species relied on systems and protocols, just like the Zentari do. Jack looked back toward the burning cabin. "You mean our primitive, unpredictable behavior is actually an advantage?" "Exactly," Samantha said. "And I think that's why the Asterians contacted us. They knew what we had that the Zentari don't." Jack nodded slowly. "We need to get this information to someone who can use it." Jack and Samantha traveled on foot for 2 days, hiding in the dense Montana forests. They saw Zentari scout ships passing overhead, but managed to avoid detection. The portable drive with the decoded message was their most valuable possession now. "We need to find a working phone or computer," Samantha said as they rested by a small stream. "We have to get this information to someone who can use it." Jack nodded, filling their water bottles. "There's a small town about 5 miles east. We could try there." As they approached the town of Pine Ridge, they saw smoke rising from several buildings. The streets were empty, with abandoned cars scattered around. No people were visible. "Something's wrong," Jack whispered, pulling Samantha behind an old gas station. A moment later, they saw why. A Zentari patrol moved down the main street, 4 soldiers led by a taller commander. They systematically checked each building, their weapons ready. "They're hunting for humans," Samantha said quietly. Jack pointed to a small electronics store across the street. "If any place has working communications, it would be there." They waited until the patrol turned a corner, then ran to the store. The door was unlocked. Inside, they found broken display cases and scattered merchandise, but the back room was untouched. Samantha found a laptop and turned it on. "It works, and there's internet." "Make it fast," Jack said, watching the street through a crack in the blinds. Samantha connected the portable drive and uploaded their data to a secure server she had access to through her university. She also sent emails to several trusted colleagues with the subject line, "URGNT, Zentari weakness identified." "Will anyone believe it?" Jack asked. "Some will. My friend Greg at DARPA will take it seriously. He's always been interested in my grandfather's work." Jack suddenly stiffened. "They're coming back." Outside, the Zentari patrol had reappeared, moving toward the electronics store. "Is there a back door?" Samantha asked, unplugging the laptop. Jack checked. "Yes, but it leads to an alley. We'd be trapped." "Wait," Samantha said, looking at the electronics around them. "I have an idea." Using parts from the store, she quickly assembled a simple device with a timer. "This will create an electromagnetic pulse. It might disrupt their communication systems temporarily." Jack looked impressed. "Where did you learn to do that?" Physics department pranks, she said with a small smile. Set for 30 seconds. She activated the timer and they ran for the back door. In the alley, they pressed against the wall. A few moments later, they heard the Zentari enter the store. Then came a sharp electrical sound, followed by confused alien clicking noises. It worked, whispered Samantha. Their translator and communication systems must be down. They slipped away while the Zentari were disoriented, making it to the edge of town before stopping to rest in an abandoned barn. The data is out there now, Samantha said, but we still don't know if anyone can use it effectively. Jack nodded grimly. And we don't know how widespread the invasion is. They found an old radio in the barn and managed to get it working. The news was worse than they feared. Centauri ships had appeared over every major city worldwide. Military responses had been ineffective against their advanced shields. But then they heard something surprising. A military broadcast reporting successful attacks against isolated Centauri units. Individual soldiers separated from their command structure appear vulnerable to conventional weapons. All units are advised to target communication arrays on Centauri command ships. Jack and Samantha looked at each other with hope. They're figuring it out, Jack said. But not fast enough, Samantha replied. According to the Asterian message, we have days, maybe hours before the Centauri bring in their main fleet. She opened her grandfather's notebook again. There's one more thing we can try. The Asterians included specifications for a communication device, something that might let us contact any of their people who survived. Jack looked at the complex diagrams. Can we build it with what we have available? Samantha studied the pages, not exactly as designed, but I think we can make a simplified version. She pointed to parts of the diagram. We need specific electronic components and a power source much stronger than batteries. The town had a power station, Jack said. If it's still operational. It's risky, Samantha warned. Jack stood up, determination in his eyes. What choice do we have? If there are Asterians out there with technology that can help us, we need to find them. As night fell, they began planning their return to Pine Ridge. Unknown to them, high above Earth, the Centauri main fleet was already preparing to enter the solar system. The power station at the edge of Pine Ridge was still running on automatic systems. Jack and Samantha worked through the night, gathering components from the electronics store and other shops to build the communication device from the Asterian plans. I think it's ready, Samantha said, connecting the final wires to the power station's output. The device looked like a mess of circuit boards, antennas, and modified radio parts, but she had followed the Asterian designs as closely as possible. What exactly will this do? Jack asked, keeping watch at the window. If I understand correctly, it creates a small wormhole for communication only, a direct link to any active Asterian technology in our part of space. Samantha checked her calculations one final time. But I'm not sure how stable it will be with our primitive components. Jack nodded. Let's do it. Samantha activated the device. At first, nothing happened. Then the makeshift antenna began to glow with a soft blue light. The air above it shimmered like a heat mirage. It's working, Samantha whispered. A sound like distant music came from the shimmer. Then suddenly, a face appeared, blue-skinned with large almond-shaped eyes. Hello, who activates this channel? The voice spoke perfect English. Jack and Samantha stared in amazement. We're humans from Earth, Samantha finally said. We received a message from someone named Ilarikos. Are you Asterian? The blue face looked shocked. Yes, I am Navigator Vorin. I command the last Asterian refugee ship. The image widened to show a small control room. We did not think you would respond so quickly. Your species was considered pre-spaceflight. The Centauri are here, Jack said urgently. They've begun their invasion. Vorin's expression darkened. Then we are too late. The Centauri main fleet. We've discovered something, Samantha interrupted. Their hive mind is vulnerable to unpredictable actions. When cut off from the main consciousness, Individual Zentari can't adapt quickly. Vorin looked surprised. This matches our observations, but we never found a way to exploit it effectively. He paused. Our ship is hiding in your outer solar system. We have advanced weapons, but not enough to challenge the Zentari fleet directly. Jack leaned forward. What if you don't have to fight them directly? What if you could disrupt their hive mind communication? Theoretically possible, Vorin said, but it would require getting past their defenses to reach their command ships. At that moment, alarms started blaring on the Asterian ship. Vorin looked at something off-screen, his face grim. The Zentari main fleet has arrived. Over 200 warships entering your solar system. He turned back to them. We can't stop them. I'm sorry. Jack looked at Samantha, then back at Vorin. You don't have to stop them. We will. How? Vorin asked skeptically. Your technology plus human unpredictability, Jack said. Can you send us plans for a smaller version of your wormhole device? Something that could transport people, not just communication. Vorin considered this. It would be extremely dangerous with your level of technology. But yes, it's possible. Send them, Samantha said firmly. The shimmer flickered as data streamed through. Samantha's laptop filled with new schematics and equations. There's one more thing, Vorin said. We detected human military forces gathering near your location. They appear to be preparing for something significant. Jack and Samantha exchanged looks. The information we sent out, Jack said. They must be acting on it. The communication suddenly cut off as explosions shook the building. Through the windows, they saw helicopters approaching and troops moving into position around the town. They found us, Samantha said, grabbing the laptop. The door burst open. Both braced for Zentari, but instead, a human soldier entered. Jack Foster. Samantha Wright. I'm Captain Steve Harris, United States Army Special Forces. We've been looking for you. How did you find us? Jack asked. Your data transmission was received by military intelligence. They recognized its importance immediately. Harris looked at their makeshift device. Is that what I think it is? Samantha nodded. Contact with the Asterians. And now we have plans for something that might turn the tide. Harris spoke into his radio. Package secured. Scientific assets in hand. To Jack and Samantha, he said, we need to move now. There's a base 30 miles from here where scientists and military leaders from around the world are gathering. The whole world? Jack asked, surprised. Harris nodded grimly. This isn't about nations anymore. It's about the survival of our species. Outside, more helicopters landed as soldiers secured the area. Above them, barely visible in the daylight sky, new lights appeared. The first ships of the Zentari main fleet, entering Earth's atmosphere. The military base buzzed with activity. Scientists from dozens of countries worked alongside engineers and soldiers, all united against the Zentari threat. Jack and Samantha's information had changed everything. The transport device is almost ready, Samantha said, checking the final connections. Based on Asterian plans but built with Earth technology, the machine looked like a large metal ring with countless wires and computers attached. Will it work? Asked General Laura Wilson, the operation commander. In theory, Samantha replied. It should create a temporary wormhole large enough for a small team to pass through. The Asterians helped us calculate the exact coordinates to reach the Zentari command ship. Outside the hardened bunker, the situation was growing desperate. Zentari forces had established control over major cities worldwide. Conventional military attacks had limited success. Only hit-and-run tactics by small, independent units were effective, confirming the Zentari vulnerability to unpredictable actions. Jack entered the room, now dressed in tactical gear. The strike team is ready. The plan was simple but dangerous. A small team would use the wormhole device to board the Zentari command ship, then deploy a signal disruptor designed to break the hive mind connection. Without central coordination, the Zentari forces would be vulnerable to Earth's militaries. We have confirmation from the Asterian ship. a communications officer announced. They're moving into position to create a distraction. General Wilson addressed the strike team. Jack, 4 Special Forces soldiers, and 2 engineers. You have 30 minutes once you're through. After that, we can't guarantee the wormhole will remain stable for your return. Jack nodded, his face serious. Samantha approached him. I should be going too, she said quietly. I understand the Asterian technology better than anyone. That's exactly why you need to stay, Jack replied. If something goes wrong, you're Earth's best hope for finding another solution. The countdown began. The wormhole device powered up, drawing massive electricity from the base's generators. The metal ring began to glow, and the air within it shimmered and swirled. Wormhole stabilizing, a technician announced. Transport possible in 10 seconds. Jack turned to Samantha. See you soon, he said with a small smile. Good luck, she whispered. The strike team stepped through the glowing portal and vanished. They emerged in a dark corridor made of some strange metallic material. The walls pulsed with faint light. Jack checked his equipment. The signal disruptor was intact. Move quietly, the team leader whispered. According to the Asterian intelligence, the central control chamber should be 2 levels up. They encountered 2 Centauri guards and quickly neutralized them using silenced weapons. The Centauri seemed confused by the sudden attack, reacting slowly without direct orders from the hive mind. When they reached the central chamber, they saw dozens of Centauri working at control stations. In the center stood a tall Centauri with distinctive gold markings on its armor. Commander Vexlar. Now, the team leader ordered. They burst into the room, firing at key points identified by the Asterians. The Centauri responded, but their movements were uncoordinated. Jack ran toward the central control panel, dodging enemy fire. He planted the signal disruptor and activated it. Nothing happened. It's not working, he shouted. Commander Vexlar approached, weapons raised. Humans, the translation device said, primitive yet persistent, but ultimately futile. Jack stared at the device, then had a sudden insight. The Centauri technology was partly biological. Maybe it needed. He pressed his hand against the disruptor, letting his human bioelectrical field interact with it. The device hummed to life, glowing with increasing brightness. Vexlar stepped back, his 8 eyes widening. What have you done? Something unpredictable, Jack replied. The disruptor released a pulse of energy that spread throughout the ship. The Centauri froze, then began moving erratically, as if confused. Some clutched their heads, others simply stood motionless. The hive-mind connection is broken, Jack said. Let's go. They fought their way back to the wormhole entry point. As they leaped through, Jack saw the effects spreading to other ships visible through the command ship's viewports. Back at the Earth base, alarms were sounding as the wormhole began to collapse. Suddenly, figures emerged from the shimmering light. The strike team, with Jack the last to come through. Samantha rushed to him. Did it work? Reports began flooding in from around the world. Centauri forces were in disarray, their coordinated attacks turning into chaos. Earth's military forces were quickly gaining ground. On the main screen, they watched as Centauri ships began to retreat from Earth's atmosphere. General Wilson turned to Jack and Samantha, a rare smile on her face. They were celebrating their triumph until they contacted a human. Jack nodded and found out that our greatest weakness, our unpredictability, is actually our greatest strength.